Okay. Thank you, Pierre. Okay, let's go ahead and start with the introductions. My name's John Carton. I'm chair of the committee. What other members are on the call right now? Committee members.
James Davenport, Vice Chair.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
This is Roseanne Ashby. I'm also on the Accessibility Subcommittee.
All right, thank you.
Mariela Garcia Colbert, member.
Okay,
Francis Kroll, member of the committee.
all right, thank you. Okay, any other committee members? Okay, if not, why don't we start with the staff introductions?
All right. Good evening, Pierre Alleman, Assistant Transit Chief, and I'll just go down the list of those who I see present. Start with Lynn.
Good evening, everyone. Lynn Rivers, Transit Chief.
Hi, Lynn.
Hello.
And Clinton.
Good evening, everyone. Clinton Edwards, Transit Services Manager.
All right, thanks, Clinton.
David.
Good evening, everyone. David Fry, Grants Administrator.
Okay, thank you, David.
Francis.
Good evening, everyone. Francis Teddy, Grants Compliance Specialist.
All right, Francis.
All right. We have 3 Josh. So Josh D.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Josh Drucker, the Transit Technology Manager.
All right. Josh N.
Josh Nicholas, Assistant Bureau Chief for Transportation Engineering and Operations.
All right. Josh
All right,
R.
Good evening, everyone. Josh Reeby, Transit Intern.
All right, great. Thanks, Josh.
Khadijah.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Kadisha Wickham. I am the marketing manager for Arlington Transit.
All right, thank you, Kadisha.
Robin.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Robin McElhenney. I'm the Transit Capital Program Manager.
Okay, thank you, Robin.
Are there any staff who I missed? I think that's all for now. And we do have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we had 2 other members join. Other members that have not introduced themselves yet?
Hi, this is Erica Chung. I'm a member of the committee.
Okay, great, Erica. Anybody else? Okay, if not, let's go ahead with public comment. Is there anyone here that wants to offer public comment? Okay. I think don't hear anybody, but I do hear some chatter in the background, so somebody needs to mute themselves. And the thing, what we try and do with our cameras is if you're not actively talking or participating in an item, we ask you that you turn your cameras off. All right, so since we now have a quorum, let's go ahead and vote on the minutes from the September 10th meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those?
I have a motion to approve. Yeah. Second, Mariela.
Okay. Any discussion of the minutes? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. So those are approved. Now we have, next item here is approval of the accessibility subcommittee nominees. We have 3 people that have expressed an interest in joining the committee. We have Cynthia Johnson Oliver. We have Judy Dixon, and we have Daniel Leslie. So, Roseanne, would you like to say something about the nominees?
I would just like to say that these 3 individuals would be very welcome and knowledgeable representatives to enhance the diversity of our accessibility subcommittee. They've been longtime Arlingtonians and STAR users, and I really highly recommend all 3 of them.
Okay, good. And that would bring you to how many members on the subcommittee?
We would have 5 at that point. We can have up to 7, and we have put out word to through the STAR program to try to recruit a few more, but 5 is certainly a good way toward meeting our goal.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments from the committee members?
And they look fine to me. Very qualified.
Okay.
James.
Thanks, Jim. Any other comments? If not, is there a motion to approve the 3 nominees to the accessibility subcommittee?
I move that we appoint these 3 individuals to the subcommittee.
I second
Okay.
that.
All right. Thank you. Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the approving the nominees, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any, they're approved. So Roseanne, you have to congratulate them for us.
I will certainly do that. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, the next item here is the proposed 2025 meeting calendar. We have 6 dates that are on there. I would just like to say that the July meeting would be problematic for me, and it proved to be problematic this past year, having it in that 3rd week. So I would request that we move it to the week of the 21st or later. And just so people know, that's historically the week. That's the meeting where we take a bus tour of our projects. It's always a fascinating tour. So we try and get as many people as possible that can make it. You know, they say that nothing beats a field inspection trip to get out in the field and see what's really being done out there. And it's always amazing to see these projects. We had a great trip in July, and I'm sure we'll have another one this year. So those are my comments. So Pierre, how can we deal with modifying that July date?
All right, the July date is noted. What we've done in the past is send out a poll to the TAC to see what dates will work best, so we can post the following week or the week after and see what the responses are. We normally would do that closer to the day because plans can change. So we can, for now, note that the July date is to be determined. And from that, we will be able to put out a poll sometime in the spring to note, you know, which dates will work best for the majority of the TAC. And that would be either July 22nd or July 29th.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Thank you, Pierre. I appreciate it. Okay, so should we go ahead and approve the dates with that one being in abeyance at this point? Pierre?
Oh, well, yeah, the TAC needs to decide. There needs to be a motion on the table for
Okay.
approval in a second, and also the vote, noting that the July date will be determined at a later time frame.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
I'll
I
motion
move
to approve.
approval.
Okay. The second?
I second.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the motion carries. All right, next item here is the TAC chair and vice chair nominations. So Pierre, I'll let you handle this one.
All right, good evening again, everyone. It's that time that nominations for the TAC chair and vice chair. I'll describe the process for everyone. For those who are new to the committee, we're asking that nominations for TAC chair and vice chair be submitted by no later than December 13th, 2024. And you're welcome to nominate yourself or nominate other members of the TAC. After nominations are sent to me, I will send out confirmations to see if the nominees will accept such nomination. If so, we'll put the list of nominees together and I will send it out to the TAC before the January 2025 meeting. I will create a poll which will allow the TAC members to vote on TAC chair and the TAC vice chair. And that information will be shared with the TAC at the March 2025 meeting.
Leave it there. My apologies.
Okay, great.
And once that's set, once the voting takes place, the TAC chair and the TAC vice chair will then hold such positions until 2027. So this is just the process. So this is just the call for nominees. And if you would like to nominate yourself or nominate someone else for the chair and vice chair position, please send me an email by no later than December 13th, 2024.
Okay, great. Thanks, Pierre. Any questions or comments from the committee? All right. Okay, now at this time, Roseanne has to leave the meeting early tonight, so we're going to go ahead and move up the report from the accessibility subcommittee, which would be later in the meeting, to this time. So Roseanne, you want to give us a report?
Oh, thank you, John. I will be brief. We had a very productive meeting today. We basically had several items on the agenda. We had asked the county staff to provide us with some data to help us compare the effect on ridership of the STAR increased fare beginning in July of 2024. They will be providing us some additional data so that we can compare month over month, year over year, how that STAR fare increase may have affected ridership, because we are concerned there are individuals with disabilities who are on fixed incomes, and the several of the Zone 2 and Zone 3 fares particularly have gone up quite a bit. We also talked about the bus audio announcements. This issue had been raised during the previous meeting, and county staff worked on this issue, and they now believe that the audio announcements should be consistent throughout all of the fleet of buses. And this is wonderful news to hear. And if there's a problem, then someone can, bring it to the attention of the county. But we are very pleased that the audio announcements on the buses are going to be able to be heard. We had a presentation on the microtransit study update, and our concern there is about the fares for people with disabilities who will be participating in this pilot. That has not been determined yet, but there are people with disabilities who are eligible for Metro Access ride Metro Rail and ART and Metro Bus for free. And we're concerned that, you know, to be consistent, we would want to see them have that opportunity in this micro transit pilot. But some of this is still has to be worked out. So the RFP for the STAR program has still not been finalized. We have been asked, we as a subcommittee have been asked to begin to look at the STAR Rider Guide with an eye to making recommendations. We will begin to do this work now, but once the contract is finalized, we will have to perhaps adjust some of our comments to reflect somewhat new service delivery processes. So we could not speak about those since the procurement is still underway. And that is the end of my report. And just to, you know, I mentioned the 3 applicants we have for our subcommittee, and we will pursue filling those 2 additional spots. And I had mentioned to John early on in the meeting, I would like to see an additional accessibility subcommittee member be part of this transit advisory committee. So that is a recommendation I am making. I haven't polled the members to see who would be interested, but I think it would be nice to have another individual on this transit advisory committee from our subcommittee. So that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, great. Thank you, Roseanne.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next item here is the TAC discussion on the Arlington transportation plan.
Okay, so that's me. Hello, everybody. Let me see if I can put it in camera. I apologize to everybody. I am on vacation. I completely forgot. So here I am. So John asked me to be the representative of TAC in the Arlington Transportation Future Advisory Group. The Arlington Transportation Future is the initiative to develop a refreshed transportation plan to replace the 2007 Master Transportation Plan. And so far, they're closing in on the first round of public engagement, which has been like a questionnaire and an interactive map that people can fill out online. And they also had tables in different places around Arlington and the county. So that closes on November 15th. But I do have an assignment before my next meeting, which is in November, maybe next week, or I can't remember. But that being said, so these are the questions I'm supposed to reach consensus from the committee members. The first question is, how do our committee use the existing master transportation plan? Do we know if we use it? How do we use it? Does anybody know the answer to that question?
Well, I'd say the way we use it is usually the staff, if we're discussing an issue that, you know, is part of the plan, the staff will remind us what's currently in the plan so that, you know, we understand, you know, what we're supposed to be doing at this time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. Anything else? I think that's pretty much the way we use it. Okay, second question. What does your committee hope the refreshed transportation plan include? A lot of things for transit.
Yes. Yeah, I would say, you know, robust emphasis on transit because we are trying to get people out of their cars. We're trying to get pedestrians in transit to complete their trips. You know, we're always looking for a more efficient system because the more efficient the system is, the more likely people are to ride it. You know, it's convenient for them to and from all their destinations, whether it be work, store, any number of activities. we want to make sure that we have a robust system that, so people take it as a very serious option and take it as a priority. But I welcome other members to chime in on this too.
And the question is again, what do you hope the refreshed transportation plan includes? Remember, I'm the liaison to this advisory panel. So anything that you tell me, I will just kind of like put together as a group and share it with the advisory group. Anybody have any thoughts? I sent everybody an email, by the way, about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago with the same questions. So I don't know if everybody got it. I sent it through my personal email. So you can always go there and quickly email me back with your answers to these questions. The third question is, what is the biggest transportation challenge facing Arlington? What is the biggest transportation challenge facing Arlington? Anybody has a thought on that question?
Well, I would say biggest challenge is probably funding our transit programs.
You beat me to it, John.
Okay. Okay, the next question is, what does your committee see as opportunities for transportation? And I could add some accessibility issues. You have to let me know. What do you see as opportunities for transportation? So chat. Okay, thank you.
Well,
Well,
let me just say one thing. I would think, Jim, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, the opportunity probably is bike share, capital bike share, scooters, more active transportation is becoming very popular ever since COVID, really. It's good to see that active transportation is becoming almost more of a norm than just an afterthought.
Okay. Maybe I can say something about being that I have a gripe with people leaving the bikes on the sidewalks.
Yes,
Especially on my neighborhood.
That is a problem.
Yeah.
And don't leave them in the streams, please.
Right.
And somebody put in the chat, making sure art routes comprehensively cover Arlington and connecting residents to places of employment.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I'll just add to that is, and I know the staff is regularly diligent on this, but as things are changing around the county in terms of transportation patterns, development, job opportunities, things like that, is that we continue to stay nimble with our route structure so that we try and capture those areas where people want to travel to and from. Because just because we have a structure today doesn't mean it's going to be optimal for the transit needs into the future.
Okay, great. But so every time that I have a meeting, I will bring an update to our committee. I think I checked. I think the next meeting is December 10. So I guess my next update will be on the meeting on January 14th or whatever it is that I remember that I saw.
Okay. And just one request, and that is if they have slide decks, they share with you at the meeting, you just get Pierre to shoot those out to us so we can look at those too. That'd be a good way to keep up with what's going on in the process.
Sounds great. Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, next item here is Arlington's Transit's micro transit implementation plan.
Good evening. Oh, excuse me. Good evening. Just give me a moment. I'm sorry.
Okay, Paul.
Oh, shoot. All right. I am going to give a brief update on the Arlington Microtransit implementation plan. Want to note this is an implementation plan. We're writing technical language for a contract procurement to start hopefully in January, and hopefully implementing yes, there's a hand up, Francis. Did you have a question?
No, that was an error. I didn't know how it happened.
Apologize. All right. All right. So briefly, what we're going to talk about is just an update to the implementation planning, what we're doing, the pilot recommendations for implementing the pilot, summary of those recommendations, and then a short discussion once we reach the end. So on this slide, it is building the right service. Key considerations on the left side, it's how we develop the service model options, program design, program operations, and then on the right side is the evaluation options, capital and operating costs, customer experience, ease of implementation, scalability and flexibility, along with interoperability. Interoperability refers to the ability of this service to commingle, to link to other transit services that we have in the county. Some of the development service model options that we were looking at is the type of vehicle, the type of contracting, customer service, education and promotion, the program operations in the everyday operation, the booking method, payment method, fare structure, hours of operations, and transfer policy. So to summarize what the recommendations have been from our contractor, the service pilot is planned to cover a 2.5 square mile zone in the northwest of Arlington. This was identified in the Arlington strategic plan. However, there have been some refinements to provide correct connections and nodes to high capacity transit, community facilities, and lower income residential areas. The project is exploring utilizing low or zero emissions vehicles. Now we'll talk about that in a moment, and to provide seamless connections to other forms of transit. The service will initially operate weekdays with potential expansion for the weekends. I want to emphasize that this is a pilot. We don't want to jump in with both feet to the deep end. So we are being very conservative with what we are looking at, and then there would always be opportunity moving forward to make expansions in either span of service or potentially other zones. So with the key recommendations being continued here, the program procurement and management and engagement are the two other areas that we received recommendations for from our contractor. The recommendation is to procure a turnkey microtransit contractor. This is very similar to what we have with ART currently, though this would even be more turnkey. Currently, ART, Arlington County owns the buses, they own the facilities, but the provider provides the operators, training, safety, insurance, things like that. So this would be very similar to the arrangement we have with our ART contractor. We also will be monitoring the performance according to a set of metrics that addresses customer experience, cost effectiveness, and service utilization. Very quantitative type metrics to see how the service is performing. And then with our engagement, we will start engagement as we get closer to the beginning of the pilot, potentially 2 to 3 months out, focusing mostly on education and promoting the pilot program. And then throughout the pilot, engagement will focus on the education, but also pivot towards receiving feedback from users and stakeholders to get more of that quantitative data on how the service is working, how people are liking it, and how successful it is from that point of view from a customer's perspective. Zone design and operation. Zone design, essentially where can people ride, and zone operation, when will they ride, how will they book and pay for the service, what transfers can be made. So as I said, the zone was designed from discussions in the previous transit development plan and actually identified in the Arlington Transit Strategic Plan. However, there have been some minor changes to the area. So on this slide, what you will see is a large red area in the western part of Arlington County, bound by Langston Boulevard to the south, Glebe Road to the east, and the county line to the north and the west. You will also see 4 circles on the map, which we are referring to as hubs. They are outside the area. One at East Falls Church, one at Ballston Metro, one at Virginia Hospital Center, and one at the Madison Community Center. The purpose for the hubs is these are areas outside the microtransit zone that people would like to connect to. You can travel from the zone to one of these hubs, or from one of these hubs to the zone. What we want to avoid is people that say arrive at East Falls Church and they want to go to Ballston, and instead of using the rail or the multiple bus services that we have at East Falls Church, they would be encouraged to potentially take a microtransit trip. The same goes for Virginia Hospital Center. We did add another zone that we are looking at. We are still having discussions on this in the Westover area, where there are three or four low-income housing developments. We are showing this as part of the zone, as you know, we want them to be able to travel to the nodes that are outside the zone. So that is why we are displaying it like that. So the last thing I will circle back to, and I see a couple questions that I will get to very quickly. Last thing I want to circle back to is the low emission vehicles. That is something that we are exploring. That is our desire, but depending on how the procurement goes, these might be some type of sedan. What we are looking for more is a type of minivan or slightly larger vehicle that would hold, you know, anywhere from maybe 8 to 10 to 12 people. We do want these to be shared rides. So let me see. Please reconsider the no service on weekends if it is already hard to get around with car. From where I live on weekends, if anything, provide Saturday microtransit. There are 2 and 3 there are more than 2 and 3 affordable housing in the Westover area, and they indicate that you lived in Westover. So again, we are closing in on the the technical language for the procurement, and as I said, if it does not start with weekend service, then we would that would be one of the first things that we would expand, but we will take this comment into consideration as we move forward. And I think that is about all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
The question I have would be, can you describe if somebody's lives in one of those areas and they want to use the microtransit, how their ride would start and end and so forth? Just walk us through a couple trips so we can get a feel for it, since it's somewhat new to many of us.
Okay, so essentially say that you live on one of the roads near Yorktown High School. You would most likely have a phone app that you could use to request a trip. The amount of time before your trip it has not been worked out. Some of this is going into our is going into the technical language, but that is something that we need to talk to the actual contractor who takes on this. So if you did live on a street near Yorktown High School, there will probably be some identified virtual bus stop area in the system that you would set your ride for. You'd be directed to this virtual bus stop. There would be a period of time, anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes would be the window of waiting for that, depending on how the service goes. But we're actually looking at 15 to 20 minutes would be the window to pick up from when your ride is supposed to be there till they could pick you up. And then say you wanted to go to East Falls Church, you may pick up other passengers on the way. There may be passengers at the bus stop with you, but you would all eventually end up at East Falls Church, or potentially someone around Yorktown High School might want to go to a shopping center that is closer to Bishop O'Connell, and maybe you are picked up and that person is dropped off there, and then the rest of the trip proceeds to East Falls Church. So is that answer your question, or would you like me to try another example?
Why don't you try one other example too?
Okay. A student that has a after school function at well, let's just say Madison Community Center. The night before, we intend to potentially have this app and a phone system. They know that they're going there in the afternoon, so they call in and they say, I want to go from Yorktown High School tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock and go up to Madison Community Center. So they would book their trip then. Once the time for the trip comes, they would go out to the assigned whatever assigned virtual bus stop or pickup area is, and they could get picked up there and transported over to the Madison Community Center. And then, they at the same time they could say, I also need to get to my house, back to my house, down closer to the intersection of maybe Glebe and Langston Boulevard. So they could make that trip at the same time the night before, and then at 7 o'clock when their activity is over, they would be picked up from Madison Community Center and taken back down to their house.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question then. So it sounds like you can make reservations. How many vehicles are you thinking about having for the pilot?
That's an excellent question. That is something that we need to discuss with the provider. Our estimates right now, based on our contractor that is working on the implementation plan, is maybe 2 to 3 vehicles. But, and again, that's why we want to be very cautious, because the cost of 2 or 3 vehicles can escalate quite a bit if this program is so successful and we're getting a lot of ridership and we have to add resources to it. So again, that's why we are trying to be pretty cautious as we launch this and make sure it's a sustainable system. We don't want to put something out there that is going to be overwhelmed day one.
And then I have another question. My apologies. You also said you're going to, so I come from Montgomery County, and they had a micro transit. I had I live 1 mile from the Wheaton Metro. I'll tell you my experience. My experience was, it was kind of on demand. You could call it, you would wait 15 minutes. You had to go to a stop that was probably, you know, maybe a block from your house. They would pick you up. And then as soon as I was almost getting to Metro, it would turn around to pick somebody else up and somebody else. And it would take me like, you know, 45 minutes to get to Metro when I could have walked it for 20. So, I mean, I understand not everybody is movable. I'm just saying that's one thing to look for. The second one is they're not successful unless you have a robust marketing campaign. So I just wanted to ask about that. I know it's just a pilot, but again, nobody writes. Obviously you mentioned that you're going to educate and talk to people about it in some way, but if you can expand on your marketing campaign.
Okay, so essentially, we haven't got the contract yet, but essentially the thought is that we are going to complete the technical language. We're going to work the rest of this month, and about mid-December get that technical language ironed out. Then put that into, at this time we are looking at a RFP, full competitive bid. Well, anything you do in government needs to be competitively bid, but the RFP process looks like what we're looking at first. Anticipating that to last 2 to 3 months. And then once we have our contractor on board, and over the course of that period, we would be putting together a marketing campaign. And like you said, we would be looking to do a fairly robust marketing campaign to make sure that people are aware of the service and making sure that people understand how the service works. And then, as I mentioned, that will pivot to not only the marketing, but communication and engagement with riders and stakeholders, and finding out how it's working, where it can be improved, and the overall satisfaction with the service.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions for Paul?
Paul, this is James. You may have mentioned this, but I didn't hear it. How long is this pilot going to run?
We are looking to start it in late summer of 2025. It's on a pretty fast track for getting it up and running. I would say that I wouldn't anticipate any less than a year. And then evaluating at that point, and I want to make this clear, it is pilot. If it's going well, we can make expansions. If we're not getting the ridership, we can do things to adjust the pilot during the pilot phase. But I would say at minimum a year, we're going to have to all sit down with some sharpened pencils, look at all the data that we have and say, hey, is this viable for Arlington County? Is it something that we can continue? Or do we need to look at other solutions? If there becomes, ideally, to be honest with you, I would like to see ridership to get so big that we are being asked to put fixed route service back in this area. That would be the ideal outcome of this. But I would say no less than a year, and then depending on where it goes from there, I would say that's when you start talking about, is this going to become a program, or is this something that we need to shelve?
Right. And you're going to have a smartphone to do it, right? I mean, it's no other
You
way
will-
around it.
You can have a smartphone, but I believe there are options for just a regular phone also,
Okay.
potentially online also, because you can book in advance. So I
right.
think that will be one of at least a few options.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, somebody's got their mic open and we're getting some extra noise from it. So if you could silence that, that'd be helpful. Paul, one other question. Remind me, in the pilot, what are the days of the week and hours for this? Because we have a comment in the chat about whether it can include weekends.
Right. Currently, we are looking at, I think it's from about 6 to 9, something in that area, Monday through Friday. The reason that was chosen is that the service that was in this area, the main service that was taken out was the 53. And the 53 was only a peak period weekday service. So it would run from about 6 to 9, 10 in the morning, and then from about 3 to 6, 7 in the afternoon. So we're actually expanding the span of service that people have an opportunity to use these buses. Because that service wasn't on the weekends, we haven't necessarily, we haven't recommended that at this point, but as I mentioned before, I have seen the comments in the chat, and they will be taken under consideration as we continue to discuss.
Okay. Other questions for Paul? Or comments?
So there is another comment in the chat. I've used microtransit in other cities. It is the public transport Uber and works efficiently. And how much does this cost related to other cities who have large programs for under $1 million? A lot, I think, the operation for the hours that we're talking about, I will have to look closer at. We have our consultant working on that right now. There's also startup costs for whoever is awarded this. So they need to have vehicles, they need to have operators, and they need to have a location to operate out of. They'd be responsible for the maintenance and care of those vehicles. So we are right now working on our independent cost estimate, essentially determining what we think that this is going to be. And I don't think I'm comfortable at this point making an estimate of what that would be, but so I'm not sure exactly at this point how the cost would relate to other services.
Okay.
But what I can say is it's similar in cost per trip to what you would see on like Star or other paratransit services.
Okay. And then the operator that the RFP will go out to, these are established operators that already have some sort of call operation that can, just fold in, our system and be able to route the calls and that kind of thing?
Yeah, that will be the contractor's responsibility. And, even though the experience will look very much similar to what I described to you, the models for doing that behind the scenes could vary widely. So someone like Via, that you may be familiar with, is very similar to Uber in the way they handle things. There are other companies that contract with cab companies or other transportation companies. But one of the absolute, things that will be in there is that they will need to be responsible for the vehicles, whatever vehicles they get, and the way to book trips, which we're assuming will be technology and some kind of phone system.
Okay. All right. Other questions for Paul? Okay. So when do you think you'll be updating us again on this particular project?
I would assume at the next meeting. I would think that probably every meeting from the TAC from now until and even through the pilot, you would be getting on updates on where we are.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Paul. Sounds like you're going to be busy for the foreseeable future here, working on a new initiative here like this.
Yeah, and very exciting though. Very exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. Okay, so the next item here is the Transit Signal Priority Project.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, getting my camera set up, and I will share my screen. Says it's loading. Can everyone see what I'm presenting?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so here is a brief overview of the Transit Signal Priority Pilot Update. Transit Signal Priority is a technology that can enhance traditional transit services by allowing the bus movements through intersections to be controlled by traffic signals. So the goal of this TSP is to coordinate the buses and the traffic signals so that way we can reduce the amount of time buses are stopped at traffic lights throughout a corridor, which will improve the on-time performance, reliability of a bus and its travel times. Arlington's goals is to maintain reliable transit service and increase on-time performance, and to achieve overall corridor transit travel time savings and reduce delays and emissions at intersections. For a regional context, on busy corridors in Northern Virginia, buses spend about 18% of time stopped at traffic lights, which is just one factor that slows down bus service. And then new construction and increased density increase the travel times for buses. Additionally, this would be the first cloud-based transit signal priority in the region. So we're kind of pioneering that technology. The transit signal priority technology has been around for a while, but doing it all cloud-based, doing it software-based is brand new to the region. I'll keep going along here, but I believe Josh, Nicholas, you're in the call if you want to take over talking about the overview of the system.
Sure. Yeah, this is the system architecture for the solution that we're deploying for TSP. There's a couple of things highlighted on here that kind of point to why we selected this setup. One is that we get to utilize a lot of the existing equipment we already have. And on the traffic signal side, we're leveraging the fiber network that the county has deployed to all the traffic signals. So we can take advantage of those two things and kind of deploy something that's pretty scalable and flexible for future applications. Can you go to the next one? So the pilot that we're deploying, or we're working on deploying right now, is along Route 29 and Sycamore Street mainly, with a small portion of Columbia Pike also. But based on the construction on Columbia Pike, we are planning on expanding that a little bit more once the construction adjacent to the area shown in orange is completed. Those primary areas shown here are where we're going to be testing a in-service portion of the TSP system. And if it's successful after evaluation, then it's a very easily scalable solution where we're not deploying a lot of equipment. It's mostly enabling network connections and things like that. Some challenges we had to starting implementation. It has been tough to get momentum on this, but that's because a lot of the IT infrastructure and networking requirements, getting the data to go between various systems has been the challenge. But right now we are fairly far along. We have opened up the communication between the traffic signals and the cloud, and also the virtual portion of the signal controls have been established. So there's a lot of networking and security portions that have been completed to date, and there's only a few things remaining to integrate for ART buses. So I could talk about the specific things that are going on right now. We are working on programming the field side controllers for the traffic signals to accept the priority calls. The virtual bench testing is completed as far as we have a virtual controller set up, and we are able to place priority calls from the cloud directly to the controller through the county's network. So that has been proofed. And then once we get the bus data integrated into the cloud server for the transit signal priority, we will be able to fully proof of concept test the whole system from bus origin, scheduling side, through the cloud, and then back to the traffic signals. Once we do that, we will deploy the technology to the pilot area and we'll begin field testing, which should be about 60 days to observe it, tweak the timings, that kind of thing, make sure that it's working as intended and placing the calls, that kind of thing. And once we're operating 60 days without any errors and everything's operating as it should be, we'll be doing the evaluation of effectiveness for that pilot area. So Josh, do you want to run through this last slide or do you want me to?
Sure, I can do it.
Okay.
So the complete pilot testing is dependent on making sure all the data is going through all the connections as needed. Right now we need the transit data, the actual second-to-second position updates from the buses to get along to through the system, so that way it can match that with the adherence, the on-time performance of the bus. The field implementation is 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the timing of the pilot test completion. Adherence values are going to be confirmed prior to the implementation and can be adjusted throughout the field acceptance phase. The field acceptance phase, that's when everything is functioning as we want it to function, and we just kind of like sit and watch it to make sure that nothing breaks or everything is going as expected. But in that period, everything's working during that period. The assessment of the effectiveness and determination of which corridor to implement a transit signal priority along next is what comes next after the field acceptance. The current top candidates are Columbia Pike and Glebe Road, with obvious what Josh just mentioned. Columbia Pike has the complications of the construction along the corridor right now, so we do have a study that looked at all the major corridors in the county, and so we'll reassess based on what we find and how effective it is, and figure out which corridor we want to put this on next. So that was a really fast, detailed overview of transit signal priority in Arlington. Are there any questions? Would anyone like to go back to any of the slides and look over it?
I've got a question for you, Josh, and that is, say the bus is driving along whatever corridor it is, and it's approaching the signal, but at that intersection, it's got a bus stop, and maybe it's coming down Columbia Pike, and it's somewhere around Glebe Road. So the driver stops to pick up a lot of passengers. Does the signal know not to give him a green when he's there doing his picking up his passengers and dropping them off, so that he's wasting everybody else's time by because he can't move?
That is a great question. We have near side and far side bus stops. Near side are the bus stops where, as you're approaching an intersection, before you go through it, that's where the bus stop is. And far side stops are after you go through the intersection, that's where the bus stop is. And so this system, as you just described, works best with far side stops. So that way, as you're approaching the intersection, you're never calling the system and making that call to say, hey, adjust the signal, and then you get stuck at picking up or dropping off passengers. You're always making those calls to get through the intersection, and then you can do your pickups and drop-offs after the intersection. So most along the corridor for Langston Boulevard, where we're approaching now, and honestly, most in the county are far side stops, so that way this works best. There are a couple instances of near side stops, and for that, we need to make sure that the stop is further away. Yes, it's before the intersection, but we need to make sure that it's further away from the intersection to give the spacing, so that way the system knows that, okay, if it passes the threshold of the bus stop and now it's approaching the intersection, in between the bus stop and the intersection, that's when the call can be made to modify the timing of that intersection. If the near side stop is directly at the if it's directly at the intersection, then with the technology we have on board right now, we would probably have to ignore that one bus stop at that one side of that intersection. But there are other technologies in the future where, based on the turn signal of the bus and the door open and shut of the bus, we know if the bus is going to go pick up a passenger, because as you're approaching a bus stop, the driver will put on its right turn signal and then the hazards to let the passengers on. So based on those things in the future, we could know if it's going to pick up a passenger or not. But as of right now, the corridor we're working on first, we're dealing with majority far side stops, so all of that, we don't have to worry about it. It's just as the vehicle approaches the intersection, we know that the intersection is going to be the first thing. The second thing would be the bus stop, just based on the order along the road.
Okay, thank you. And second question is, I think you mentioned early on that this would be tied in with the emergency vehicles, any influence they have over the signals, so they would get top priority.
Yeah, it looks like Josh will speak on this, but the emergency services definitely get priority over transit.
Do the emergency services now control some of the lights?
They have infrared system that is line of sight. So if they trigger the light, it will change, but that's a high priority call. So the high priority calls will always override any low priority calls that are pending in the controller. And the method of changing the signal is a lot more aggressive with the high priority call. So there's certain things where we do to accommodate the emergency vehicles that we would not do for the bus. just because of the way that the cycle goes through the different movements at the intersection.
Right. As Josh is alluding to here, as the bus is approaching the intersection, even if it's late, it's not going to cause the signal to completely go off of its normal pattern to let the bus go through. It will just make some modifications to maybe speed up any processes or elongate any greens just ever so slightly to help us get back on time. But the transit vehicle will not completely disrupt the flow of an intersection the way an emergency vehicle might.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, other questions from the committee?
Josh, this is James. I think you basically touched on my question was traffic signals, they're set to address peak congestion at particular intersections. And if the buses are arriving at a particular intersection, you want the green. It's not going to conflict with what's regular, the timing of that signal initially, right? As you just mentioned. I mean, because you can make some tweaks so that those signals aren't totally thrown off and you have a, you know, a congested mess on on your hands at a particular intersection to allow the buses to go through. I'm just wondering how you're addressing that, that conflict.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Very Joshua looks like he'll jump in.
Yeah, no, that's a great comment. I think a lot of times the priorities are going to be or the signals are programmed in a way to accommodate normal traffic volumes, which does include transit. They're part of the traffic flow and in any direction at any given time on a route. But the parameters that we set for each intersection are unique to that intersection, given the timing and the way that the signal is structured. So, the things we do at one intersection may not be the same exact things we do at the other. It's things like extending the green for a little bit if you're traveling in the major direction, or maybe calling green a little bit early, but it's nothing where we're going to maybe totally jam up the coordination for the corridor, because that will take some time to remedy in the normal progression of things. And we wouldn't want to do that anyway, because that would hurt transit.
Right. Okay. I would think that would be a big challenge, but I'm not an engineer.
Yeah, we looked at every single intersection. We not only do we have our own traffic engineering and operations team review every intersection, we also brought on a consultant to help us review each intersection and look through the timings and make sure pedestrians have enough time to cross, even with the extended green or the early green. Every traffic pattern through the intersection was looked at to make sure that we can help bring the buses back on time without disrupting everything else going through the intersection.
And that way you had the traffic engineers buying into the pilot.
Right.
Yeah. Right. That's a key. I would think that'd be a key thing.
Absolutely. They've been super helpful. They've been managing a lot of this project, so it's been super helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Okay, if not, thank you for the presentation, and we look forward to updates in the future on how it's going.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, you guys.
Okay. All right, the next item here is the transit capital projects.
Hi, everyone. I'm Robin McElhenney. I just have some updates. I have some good news updates to give you all. We have 2 items that are on the board agenda for this Saturday. The segment 2A of the Transitway to Pentagon City and the bus bay expansion at East Falls Church Metro Rail Station. Both are going to the board to seek approval to award construction contracts. So with the board's approval on Saturday, we anticipate issuing notice to proceed to each of the contractors in December, which would lead us to starting construction in the February timeframe. So we just wanted to make you all aware of that. And next year at our tour, we most likely will be visiting both of those projects and see construction at work. We also are, I think most of you know that we've been working on the design for the Boston West second entrance for a while. We're working on the 35% design update, and we have been working very closely with WMATA. We have reached a point where WMATA is going to be holding a public hearing on December 10th, a few weeks from now, at the Central Library in Boston. And this is an opportunity for people to come out and provide testimony and provide their input. So Metro and the county is also looking for seeking public input on the second entrance. And there's different ways that the public can provide information. One is attending the public hearing itself. One is all through an online survey. One is through writing, old-fashioned writing and mailing it in. There's a number of ways of providing input. I'm going to be providing that information as part of the meeting minutes that go out. So everyone on the committee understands different ways they can provide their input. So that's coming up. Again, it's on December 10th, and certainly would appreciate everyone's input and provide your input on the way that's most convenient for you. So
Hey,
that's,
Robin,
yes.
since that's coming up pretty quickly, it'd be probably useful for you to send us a separate email to
Okay.
just bring to everybody's attention, anybody also who's not here at this meeting,
Sure.
about the ways they can provide input.
Will do. I'll get that out, this week for sure.
Okay, good.
Okay, that's all I have. So thank you all.
Well, I have a question for you, Robin.
Okay.
That is, on our transit tour back in July, we saw some projects that were, close to being finished. So if you could just update us what's happened between July and now on a few of those that were real close.
One that's really close is the Art Operations and Maintenance Facility. And that has a ribbon cutting coming up on the same day as the compact hearing, but it's in the morning, not at night. And I think substantial completion is happening this month. And then we get the keys and can move in. So that is close to being finished, as I think we've reported on in a long time. So Peter,
Okay.
do you have anything else to say about that, or did I get my dates right?
Yes, you got your dates correct, and we are pretty close. We are almost there. So hopefully by the end of this month or beginning of December, we'll have the keys and can begin the process of moving in.
Then
Yeah.
another one, John, was Pentagon City's second elevator.
Yes.
That one is getting closer. We're not quite there yet. There's still some final testing and acceptance work that needs to happen before WMATA, before the final commissioning and acceptance process is complete. I don't have a specific date yet on that project, but it is I would, fingers crossed, within the next couple of months.
Okay, good. And how
Those
about any further updates on some of those other projects we saw? If there's anything noteworthy?
Oh, yes. At Crystal City, there's a big hole being dug. I think when we were out there, it was I think the trees were still there. I think the trees may have come down the following day, but
Okay.
the excavations happened. Excavation is happening. It's mass excavation. There's drill riggers out there. There's cranes out. I don't think there's a crane out there yet. Oh yeah, there is a crane out there now. So active construction site and a very active MOT and maintenance of traffic underway, to get the trucks in and out and make sure people can navigate the site. So that work is advancing quickly. Has a long way to go, but it's definitely in
Mhm.
full operation.
Good. Okay, anything else?
You know, July was a long time ago, John. I'm trying to think. I think that covers it.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So
All
if you
right.
have any further questions, let me know.
Okay, any questions for Robin?
Robin, this is James. When is the ribbon cutting again for the operations facility, bus operations facility?
It's December 10th.
December 10th. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, so we've had the report from the accessibility subcommittee. Additional items from committee members or staff? I have one other thing to add, and that is I recently attended the quarterly meeting. I think it was quarterly or semi-annual or annual meeting of Vision Zero, and they gave an update on some projects have been completed this year, ones that they're working on, and the numbers generally are getting better under Vision Zero in terms of fatalities and serious injuries. So they're making good progress. But if there was this meeting took place actually right after the tragic death of I think it was about a 19-year-old up on Harrison Street late at night, was killed in a car accident up there. A car was speeding a high rate of speed and hit some parked vehicles, and I think the individual didn't have a seatbelt on, and he died from his injuries. So that was really tragic. But I say all this to that if you have suggestions or you see areas where the safety really needs to be improved, whatever it is, pedestrians, transit, things like that, you can bring it to my attention, or you can bring it to the attention of the Vision Zero group, which Christine Baker is heading up, but she's got a pretty good team there, and they'll check it out and make a recommendation as far as a potentially dangerous situation. So one of the big challenges we have here in Arlington is there seems to be more and more cars on the street, and there seems to be more and more people driving cars and driving them faster than ever. So it's a really important area for us to all be looking out at areas where we can improve. And sometimes it's just small things, like, for instance, I remember in the election process a year ago, I was at an intersection and where I was trying to make a left-hand turn, and it was a pretty significant intersection on George Mason Drive by Route 50. And the vision of seeing oncoming cars was blocked by some of the election signs that were put up there. So I recommended that they get rid of those, and they did. So anytime you see safety issues like that, feel free to bring it to the Vision Zero attention, or you can let me know. So any questions on that? Is everybody familiar with that program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So now, are there additional items people would like to comment on?
John, I wanted to actually make an announcement that I haven't had a chance to share with the Transit Advisory Committee, but I will be retiring at the end of this year. I know I look barely old enough to drive, but I will be. I have announced to my team and to the DES leadership and others that I will be retiring at the end of this year, and it's been an exciting 21 years that I
21
have.
years.
21 years. Can you believe that?
Oh,
That I
boy.
have been involved in transit, and most of if not all of them have dealt with the Transit Advisory Committee. I don't know that John, has it been you involved all this time? I know you've been involved for a lot of years with the advisory committee.
Yeah, it has been a long time.
Yeah.
I've kind of lost track here.
Well, okay. Well, I won't say much more than that. I won't date us. But I just wanted to say that it has been a pleasure working with the Transit Advisory Committee. There's been a number of different members that's been a part of the committee. All have been committed to transit and transportation. And it's been a joy to work with. When you've been in the industry as long as I have, it's a welcome sight to actually be with people who are your advocates. I mean, true advocates for transit and for public transit, and ask good questions and really push and press and prod us to be our best. And so I just wanted to share that news with you and to thank you for the committee that has worked with us over all of these many years. I know it has not been officially noted yet, but I would dare to say that Pierre is going to be acting
Okay.
in this role as the transit chief. And so I know that you all will still be in good hands with the transit staff. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that. I kept thinking, okay, I'm going to see you all again next month, but I forgot the next meeting is not until January. And so my last day will be December 31st.
Boy, well, we certainly thank you for your service all these 21 years. I guess we've been having a good time because time's been flying. You know, you've done
Absolutely.
a great job, and we've seen so many changes, during that period of time. But I've got one question for you, and that is, so when did they lower the retirement age to 39?
That's pretty good, John. That was something new that Mark Schwartz just did, just this past year. So,
Well, I could see why you'd jump on that opportunity there. But it's not going to be the same without you, Lynn.
well, you know what? I think that you all will still, again, you will continue to have good professional people here in the Transit Bureau that will be able to help move things along with your ideas and your support. Because I mean, truly, we need advocates in this space from a funding standpoint, from asking the questions about providing good service. And sometimes as staff, we can't necessarily say the things that you all can say as a committee member, and to ask the kind of questions and to kind of push for projects that we even have out there to make them better. A lot of times it takes you all on the committee. So I will just leave that with you. Continue to raise the flag for us.
We will, but it's teamwork, all of us working together is what gets it done.
Absolutely.
And you've certainly put together a good team, so we appreciate that. And I can see where maybe you feel like you can retire now because you got such a good team you're working with.
You know what? That's it. That's it right in a nutshell, John. I am so happy and comfortable, and know that we have a great team here, that you all are in good hands.
Good. Well, that's good and bad news for us because we're certainly going to miss you, but we're happy for you.
Well, thank you.
And we'll see what your new
Congrats, Lynn.
future is.
Congrats, Lynn. We're going to miss your work.
Well, thank you. Thank you, James. All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other items from committee members or staff? Okay, if not, then our next meeting will be January 14th, and we'll look forward to the excitement on December 10th when the ribbon cutting at the new art facility. So until then, everybody have a good 2 months, and we'll look forward to seeing you then.
Look forward to seeing you in our new home.
That's right.
All righty. Have a good
Okay.
night.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Good
Good night.
night, everyone.
Good night.